Hey, welcome back to another episode of A Gardener's Journey Homestead. I'm Barbara. I'm glad that you're here. Y'all, we have a whole situation going on with the weather. I'm in the sunroom today. You know, a lot of times if I'm in the sunroom, that means the weather is bad. Now I shouldn't say that. All the time I'm not out here, the weather is bad. But when I'm shooting video for YouTube, a lot of times if I'm in here, either I'm doing something with my seeds, organization, because I have space that I can just lay everything out, or the weather is bad. So today we're talking about the crop plan. I want to share with you, I've been talking about my crop plan. I've been working on it. It's still not 100% perfect, but I at least want to bring you along where I am and just kind of show you how I put it all together. That way, if you're in the middle of starting your seeds and planning for your summer garden, I want this to be helpful for you instead of me trying to be 100% perfect and try to talk about this in June when you've already started your seeds and they're in the ground, okay? Makes sense? So let me tell you about the weather. So the weather has been really crazy here. I'm in Tennessee. I'm in zone 7A, and right now, I don't know if you can hear it, but we're under a high wind warning. We have been under that since 2 days ago. So literally for 48 hours, we've been under a high wind. We've had severe thunderstorms. We've had tornado watches, all the things, right? And so I have not been able to really be outside a lot. And the thing is, we've had great temperatures, like 75 degrees, but it's been full on rain, thunderstorms, gray skies, and so not the best environment to be outside. And I was gonna go in the greenhouse today and start some seeds, but y'all, it is like a soggy, just to get to the greenhouse, it's like a soggy mess. It's soggy when you first come into the tunnel, because I've had some of the doors open because it's been, you know, a high temperature. And so it's just soggy, it's nasty, and I just wasn't feeling it today. I'm gonna try again another day. But I wanted to at least shoot some content and show you guys what I've been working on since I've been kind of in the house, so to speak. So I wanna go through my crop plan. And if you're not familiar with what that terminology means, basically I've kind of planned out where my crops are gonna go for the summer. And the reason why, for me, this is really important, especially this year, is because I'm really trying to start at least 95% of my seeds, really 100% of my seeds. I'm trying to grow from seed as much as I can. One, to save expenses and costs, and two, so I can grow what I want to grow. Now, I say 95% because I'm just giving myself, I don't even have to give myself nothing. I want to grow as much seed as I can, but I'm still going to buy some transplants from the store if I see some. If I want to, I will. And I can, and I will. So I don't want any judgment, okay? No judgment. No judgment. I'm starting hundreds and hundreds of seeds. But when you go to the store, you're like, oh, that's like a chocolate mint, and I only have chocolate mint. So let me get that chocolate mint. You know what I'm saying? There's always something at the nursery or at the big box store that catches your attention. You're just like, oh, let me get that. Or maybe some of your seeds, maybe you don't have enough that actually are able to be transplanted, so you need to kind of pick up some fillers. That's the kind of situation that I'm trying to be in. I'm trying to be in a situation where if I'm buying some seeds, it's because something I did not start, or maybe it's a filler because I miscalculated, or it just didn't, the seed didn't do well, okay? So that's kind of my disclaimer. Other than that, I really, really, really wanted to start everything from seed just because I have a lot of growing space and it's just gonna make much more sense. So last year I did seed in a big way, and I would say I probably did about 70%, 60 or 70% I grew from seed. The other 30% was really just, I did not have a crop plan and calculate how many I would need. And so I just didn't do enough. That's really what happened. So I remember distinctly having to I bought a lot of basil starts. I bought a lot of marigold starts. Like, I didn't think about when I was starting it that I wanted, basil obviously to eat and to preserve, but also just basil in the garden as a companion plant. And so I just didn't start enough of those for all the spaces. And then marigolds, I ended up buying a ton of those because in the outside garden, they work, well, anywhere they work very good for pollination. They're really good as a companion plant for tomatoes. And so I just didn't start enough. I started, I don't know, like 3 or 4. And I'm like, I bought probably 15 or 20, right? In those little flats. So knowing that now I can just start more instead of trying to buy it from the big box store. So those are 2 that definitely come to mind. In terms of like tomatoes and peppers, I definitely had enough peppers from seed for the outside, but I did end up buying more for the inside, and then I ended up buying more just for another succession planting. So all that to say is the crop plan I'm going to share with you today, I have gone into great detail about where I'm planting and how much of it I need, so I know how many seeds to start. So it's like I'm starting with the big picture, way, up here, and then breaking it down to, okay, how does that translate into how many seeds I actually need to start, okay? So if that's your jam and you're all, you want to nerd out with me for a little while, then let's talk about the crop plan, okay? So for those that are brand new to me, let me talk to you about my growing space. So I have 5 raised beds behind my house that are 4 by 8. And so that's one growing area. And that's actually where I started my gardening journey, was behind my house with raised beds. So I have those 5 that are 4 by 8. Then I have a high tunnel that is 30 by 96. It has 6 raised beds in it. And then I have 5 45-foot rows of in-ground space in the high tunnel. That was the second thing that I did after the raised beds. Then last year we added additional space. We did an in-ground garden, which I absolutely loved. That was my first time doing that. And that space is about 25 by 100, 22 to 25 by 100. So you can see I have probably over 5,000 feet of growing space. That's a lot of space. And if you were thinking about, when you think about buying all of those as starts, that gets to be just not even economical, right? So I'm a big proponent of starting seeds. And this year is my second year starting seeds successfully. Last year was the first year that I did it successfully. I tried year 1 and it was an epic fail, right? And so I did a video on how to start seeds. I'll try to link that up below. But that's kind of what I'm working with. So the first thing that I did was I have these sheets. And I have a sheet for each space, right? So you can see here, I started off with let me just show you, because I want y'all I'm just going to show you the whole thing. So I started off with just drawing it on paper, right? You can see all of my little sheets where I just drew on paper, right? Then I went to the computer and put it into the computer so that I could kind of see it, in a sheet like this. So I have a sheet for each space. That's my raised bed. This is the one for the greenhouse. And then this is the one for the in-ground garden. So basically, each paper kind of represents that space. So you can see here, you have 5 rectangles, right? So that represents the 5 raised beds, okay? So let's start with the raised bed because that's the easiest. We're going to go from easiest to most complicated or more space, however you want to look at it. So in my raised beds behind my house, I looked to see, or I wrote down what I already have in my raised beds right now. And so right now in 2 of my raised beds, is it 2? 1. I'm looking outside my window. I always get this confused. It's 2. Yep. It's 2. Bed 3 and bed 5. I number my beds in my head from 1 through 5, going from left to right. So right now here today, I have 2 beds that are full of garlic. I know that those won't be ready to come out until June. So as I'm planning, I'm thinking through that okay, I can't do anything now or in those particular beds, but in June, they're gonna come out. So what can I plant in those beds when that comes out and still have enough maturity time to harvest, right? So I'm fortunate that I'm in a very long growing season. I think my growing season is 100, excuse me, 110 days, somewhere along in there, between 110 and 120. So I have a pretty long growing season, which is great. And so I know that I can put stuff in those beds when the garlic comes out. So what I have planned is in the 2 beds that I have garlic, I'm gonna do, and I have it listed on my sheet as summer 2, right? So that lets me know, okay, that's the second half of the summer. I'm gonna do some peppers, and then the other bed, I still have a question mark. So like I said, it's not 100% perfect. So like you can see here, question mark, because I don't know yet what I'm gonna put there, but more than likely it's gonna be maybe probably tomatoes or something like that. So that's 2 of the beds. Now, next in the 3 beds that are remaining, I will be planting my onions out there. And I will be planting onions in the next few days. And so I'm gonna do the remaining 3 beds full of onions and leeks. Candy, yellow onions, purple onions or red onions, and then leeks. So that's gonna take up the remaining 3 beds. So fast forward in a week, in the backyard space, I will have 2 beds of garlic and I will have 3 beds of onions and leeks, right? And so the onions should be ready like by end of May. They have like 100-day maturity, if I'm not mistaken. No, maybe 80-day maturity. So anyway, they'll be done like by the end of May, probably still first part of June, somewhere along in there. So what am I gonna plant in those beds when those onions come out? So I'm gonna plant some Roma tomatoes, some paste tomatoes in 1 bed. I'm gonna do cucumbers in 1 bed. And then I'm gonna do green beans in another bed. So I've already kind of mapped that out. And I know that for the Roma tomatoes, for the cucumbers, and for the green beans, I'm gonna be planting those more in the June timeframe versus in the May timeframe, okay? So how does that help when it comes to seeds? Okay, so my green beans, I don't start from seed, I just direct sow those, okay? So there's nothing I need to do with that. For my cucumbers, I can direct sow those or I can start from seed. Last year, I started from seed like a week and a half before and then just put them in the ground. So I can do that or I can direct sow. And then for the Roma tomatoes, I will start from seed. And so if I know that I'm gonna do Roma tomatoes, let's say mid-June, then I can back myself up 8 weeks and I need to be starting more tomato seeds in mid-April, somewhere along in there. Hopefully that makes sense. But I want to stop right here and say, do you see when you're planning and you're being intentional, it kind of gives you some focus, it gives you some structure of what you need to do next, right? And ideally, I would have had this done, signed, sealed, and delivered, and completed, like a month ago, right? And I could, in an ideal world, I would have like put this on my calendar to remind me, okay, on April 15th, you need to start some Roma tomato seeds. Now I have it in a spreadsheet, but I would go one more step and actually put it on my home, like personal calendar. So that way it reminds me. Because what happens is that when the garden season starts to begin and the last frost date has passed and you're planting stuff out, it can be easy to forget like, oh, you know what? I'm not done because I still have another succession to plant later in the summer. I hope that makes sense. So that's the raised bed backyard crop plan. So pretty simple, okay? And then also, I know these beds are 4x8 beds. So again, I'm gonna have a whole bed of green beans. So I know that, so I can kind of plan how many green beans do I need, okay? So then let's talk about the greenhouse or the high tunnel, right? So in the high tunnel, you can kind of see here, I have my, let me show you this one. This is the one that I wrote on. Sorry. I have my 6 raised bed, 3 here, 3 here on either side. I got on my computer, my little 3rd bed is not showing, right? But let's pretend. So 3 beds on the left, 3 beds on the right. Then if you're not new here, you know that I have 2 circular raised beds on the way to the in-ground space. And so that's what these circles represent here. Okay, and then I have 5 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows that are 45 feet long that are in ground in the high tunnel. Okay, so let's talk about what we're gonna do in the high tunnel. And then in the back of my high tunnel, I have an open space, and that's where I put my containers, my container gardening, like for herbs and things like that. So I've already kind of mapped out, you can see that here. The herbs, I'm gonna have oregano, thyme, lemon balm, and mint in containers. Those things are very invasive, so I don't plant them in a raised bed. I don't plant them in ground. I keep them in a container so that they can be contained and not go everywhere, okay? So again, I'm already planning that's where that's gonna go. Okay, and in my, let's start with the rows back here. Again, I'm gonna do, in my high tunnel, I'm doing a lot of hybrid greenhouse high production crops, right? I talked about that on an earlier video. I specifically bought some greenhouse varieties that are designed for the greenhouse. So that means they can take high heat, they can take high humidity, right? And so on my plan, I have the Katrina cucumber that I'm going to do. That is a greenhouse cucumber that is actually self-pollinating, right? We'll talk about that more when I get ready to plant it. And then I'm doing my peppers. I have 2 rows of peppers. But let me tell you again what I did that I did not do last year. It's a 45-foot row, right? And so what I did was I'm gonna plant my tomatoes, 18 inches to 2 feet apart, right? And so I use the measurement 2 feet of spacing. So if I'm gonna do 2 feet of spacing in these rows, that means in a 45-foot row, I can get anywhere from 25 to 30 plants per row, right? I hope you're following me. So basically the length of the row, I know what my spacing is. So I know how many plants I can fit there. And if I know how many plants I can fit there, then I know how many seeds I need to start. Hopefully that makes sense. So again, it is a greater level of detail, but it's gonna help me tremendously. Instead of me just starting a pack of tomato seeds, a pack of pepper seeds, and not really counting how many I have, or just trying to fill up a 32 cell tray, or doing it that way, I may not have enough. But doing it this way, I know I need to start 25 to 30 plants per row, right? And I have it even laid out about what's gonna go in each row. I don't know if you can see that. Hopefully you can. So let me just read off an example. So in one of my tomato rows, I'm gonna have 10 Dr. Witchies, I'm gonna have 10 Paul Robeson, and I'm gonna have 10 Cherokee Purple, right? So I already know I need to start 10 seeds of each of those. Now, because every seed may not germinate, then if I wanted to, I could do 15 of each one, right? And if I have extra, I could give it away. But now I know I need 10 of each one, right? Instead of me just, like I did last year, oh, let me do a couple of Dr. Witchies, let me do a couple of Paul Robesons, let me do a couple of Cherokee Purples. I know exactly what I need. And also last year, I would put way more space than the 2 feet of space, right? Now, is that gonna hurt anything? No, it's not gonna hurt anything. But when you're trying to max out production and max out your yield, then you need to bring that stuff into a safe planting distance, right? So instead of me planting them 4 feet apart, I can plant them 2 feet apart and get more plants in, which means more production, more yield, okay? If you have questions around that, or if you have thoughts or how you do it, then let me know. Put it down in the comments, because we're all here to learn. Again, this is something that I'm doing on my farm and what I'm going to try out this particular season. So I'm not going to take you through all of the detail, but basically I use that same approach, right? So for my peppers, the same thing. I know in one particular row, I'm going to have 12 of the Burkhansa, which is a pepper, and then I'm gonna have 12 sprinters, which is a red bell pepper, okay? So again, I have it all mapped out about what's gonna go where, and then how many I need of each one, okay? And then the very last thing is the in-ground garden space. So I have 7 rows in my in-ground garden. My rows, again, are 100 feet rows, and they are 3 feet apart each row. Now, for those that do like market gardening and all of that, they usually have 18-inch rows, right? Y'all know when I started this last year, I wanted to be able to walk around. I wanted to be able to bend down. I wanted to be able to get the stuff and not be all uncomfortable and not just be I didn't want to have to do that. And again, I'm not growing to sell at scale, right? Maybe one day we'll want to do that. We are going to sell some stuff from the farm, but we're going to keep the spacing that we have. But if I was selling to eat, meaning this was my job and whatever we produce is equated to what we make in terms of income, then yes, it would make sense to be a little way more intensive and to shorten up that space in between the rows. But for us, that's not what we're doing, okay? So there's 3 feet in between rows. I have 7 rows, and I've kind of mapped out what is gonna go where. You can kind of see that here. So in one row, I have my corn and my green beans, okay? In another row, I'm doing purple hull peas for the entire 100-foot row. Last year I did half, which is a 50-foot row, and that worked out great. And I think I have 3 more bags of purple hull peas right now. It's March, and so it's not gonna last me till the summer until I can have more again. But I got, I guess 9 months in. But if I do the whole 100-foot row, I should have enough to last me the whole year, right? So that's how I'm thinking about it. Then in another row, I have my eggplant, I have my squash, and I have my zucchini, right? And so I have 3 crops in that row because 1, we don't eat a lot of eggplant, and I'm actually growing that eggplant to sell. The majority of it will be to sell, not to eat or preserve. And then squash and zucchini, again, I will do several successions of squash and zucchini. So it's okay that they only are not, only gonna be like 25 feet out of the 100-foot row, okay? So that's kind of how I've thought about it and I've planned it, right? I looked at my spacing again for my peppers. And so if I do peppers at 18 inches to 2 feet, and I use the measurement 2 feet just to kind of give myself some wiggle room, then that means I can fit 60 plants in one row in my in-ground space, right? 60 plants. So now that I know that I need to have at least 60 pepper plants started just for the in-ground garden, right? This is gonna help me that I don't have to go to the big box store because I only did, because like last year I think I did 45, if I remember correctly, I did 45. That left me with 15 having to buy. 15 times $4 adds up really, really, really quick, right? And I think I didn't even buy 15. I just had them further apart, right, to take up the row. But now I know exactly how many I need to plant. And not only do I know how many, I know how many of each one, because I've laid out in the in-ground garden space for peppers. I'm doing the Sugar Rush Peach. I'm doing bell peppers that I saved from my own seeds. I'm doing jalapeno, habanero, and cayenne. I know that's gonna go outside versus in the tunnel, I'm doing those hybrid bell peppers, okay? So I could go on and on. This is the crop plan, right? I would encourage you, your space may be bigger than mine. If so, then I hope and assume that you're doing a crop plan too. Your space may be significantly smaller than mine. You still need a crop plan. I don't care if you just have the 5 raised beds, right? If I just had 5 raised beds and that was it would still be good for me to do a crop plan. Now, it wouldn't take me as long to do it, right? Because it's not a lot of space. But it's still important to do one so that you know intentionally what is gonna go where, how many do you need of the plant based on the space that you have and the yield that you want. Are you going to do successions if you have a long growing season? Okay, now let's back up and how many seeds do I need to start? That is how you figure out how many seeds you need to start. At least that's how I'm figuring it out. Now, a lot of people will do, oh, you need this many plants for a family of 4 or 5. I didn't do it that way. You can do it that way, but there's a lot of factors involved. I'm really focused on how much do I need that can fit in the space. And I'm gonna let the yield of the plant dictate how much we have to preserve, how much we have to eat versus how much we have to give away or to sell, okay? So again, a lot of different approaches that you can take, but for me, this is my whole crop plan was for me to figure out how many seeds do I need to start for what I'm trying to accomplish this growing season, okay? So I would love to know how you guys approach your crop plans, how you approach how you're going to do your garden. And again, there's no judgment. You know, you do you, however you do you. But if this is helpful, which I hope it is, then certainly take some of these techniques and figure out how many you need to start. And that way we're still in the seed starting phase. And so if you didn't start enough, then just go start more, right? It is so much more economical to start a seed than to buy a transplant, right? Now, we all say that there's time and there's money, and whichever one you have the more of. Some people have more money, so they don't mind going buying transplants because they may don't have the time to start seeds, or they may not have the space, right? So do whatever applies to you. But that is the crop plan. So what I'm going to do now, I'm actually going to transition. I'm going to take you into the house. I'm going to give you a peek on how the seedlings so far are doing, and then I bought another new thing that I love, and I think you're gonna love too if you want it for your seed starting grow station. Let me show you. I'll meet you in the house. Okay, y'all, let me show you how the seeds are doing. So we have pretty much 3 rows going right now. So I'll start here in the middle. This is the ones that are the most established. I will tell you, I really, really, really love these Epic Gardening 6-cell trays. You can see here kind of what they look like. I love the fact that it's just, I don't know, I can pull it out. All of these are the same crop. They're very, very sturdy, and they have done really, really well. And that these are a lot of bell peppers. The only thing that has not germinated are some of these jalapenos, and we're probably right around probably the 10-day mark or so. This is the tray that I told you germinated in 4 days. The only thing that didn't was these 6 right here. I'm not sure why, but you can see all the rest of them are doing really, really well that I showed you the last time. And then this tray here is doing really well. You can see that here. You have mint, cilantro, and then this is all eggplant there. And then here is some Dusty Miller. And then back there is eucalyptus. And then look at our little lavender experiment. You can see all 6 germinated. This is the lavender that was stratified, cold stratified. Here is the ones that were not cold stratified. You can see only 1 has germinated so far out of the 6 block versus the ones that I cold stratified. All 6 of them came up. And then here are the ones that we most recently started. It's hard with the lights. Most of these, they're just now germinating. Just now germinating, you can see there. So a little bit of a ways to go. And then on this one, you can see we have some germination, but not a whole lot yet. And these are all peppers. And you know, peppers can take 10 to 14 days. So that's why it was so surprising when I had these pop up in like 4 days, which is so interesting. And then down here is lettuce. There are 8 green butter lettuces and 8 red butter lettuces. And then these 2 here are the sage and the lemon balm that we started. They have not germinated as of yet. And again, they take up to 14 days, and we're probably on day 7 or 8. So we'll keep waiting and see what happens. But overall, doing well. Now, let me show you a couple of the new things that I bought that are game changers. Okay, so a couple things I want to show you is that I got these for my shelves. I'll get my son to come a little bit closer. You can see, let me get these right here. These are like perfect. They fit the shelves. And I got this because sometimes I would put stuff, as you can kind of see up here, it's directly on the shelf and little cups can like fall through. But here, this is a great way to have just a smooth surface that you can see here. It's like a hard plastic. So that's a good thing. Then the other thing I bought, I got some new lights. So these are the lights I've been using. They're like more wide and they have worked great. But I tried these new lights and they're good, but let me just show you the game changer. You can see here, I'm gonna zoom in right here. I have a pulley system, so I can raise and lower my lights. All I do is I press this button and I can lower it, or I can pull this up. You can hear the click, and raise it up. So as you're doing your seedlings, you want the light as close to the plant as possible. That's how you prevent legginess. But I was having a hard time lowering and raising my lights without my husband's help. Like, it was on chains. He would have to do it. I couldn't do it. Y'all already know. I need to be able to do stuff myself. I ain't got time to be waiting around when it comes to my plants. So I found this pulley system. I will link it down below. That works great. So let me just show you. These are already kind of pretty low. Let me see if I can show you on this one. Gotta get my cords right. Let's see. So if I wanted to lower it, I would just press this button. You can see that it's coming down low. Then if I wanted to pull it up, I just pull it up like that. And there's a pulley on either side, so you can see kind of how it works. Hopefully that was able to, you were able to see it in real life action. But it is a game changer when you're trying to lower and raise your lights on your seedlings. So y'all, thank you for joining me today. We talked about the crop plan. I gave you an update on the seedlings. And of course, every time I buy a new tool that I love, I will show you. Love this. It has come in so handy. I'll put the link down below. But remember, y'all, this is all a journey. Let's grow together. I'll see you next time, friend.